What would you do if your family discovered you were secretly a multimillionaire? Would you share your wealth with people who spent your entire life treating you like you were invisible? Today's Reddit story is absolutely wild, and I promise you won't see this twist coming. Picture this. You're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner, surrounded by family who've spent decades dismissing your achievements and treating you like a disappointment. They think you work at a tiny antique shop, barely scraping by. But the truth? You're actually running a multi-million-dollar authentication business with offices in 3 cities. And when your jealous sister tries to embarrass you in front of everyone by showing them your laptop screen, expecting to reveal some pathetic small-time work, she accidentally exposes that you have over $12 million in the bank. The explosion that followed? Absolutely legendary. This is Sarah's story, and it's one of the most satisfying tales of family karma I've ever heard. So grab your snacks, get comfortable, and let's dive into this incredible Reddit story about the invisible daughter who became a secret millionaire. Sarah was 8 years old when her entire world changed forever. She was an only child living a pretty normal life in Michigan. Her parents weren't particularly warm or affectionate, but they were present. Her mom helped with homework. Her dad took her fishing on Lake St. Clair. It wasn't perfect, but it was fine. Then came the night that would rewrite her entire childhood. At 2 in the morning, Aunt Kelly showed up telling her to pack a suitcase. Her mom was in the hospital. Her sister Rachel was coming, but something was very wrong. Rachel wasn't supposed to arrive for another 2 months. Rachel was born extremely premature, tiny and fragile, connected to tubes and wires. Sarah wasn't allowed to touch her or even get too close. And that's when it started, that invisible wall forming between Sarah and the rest of her family. When Rachel finally came home, their house transformed into what Sarah describes as a sterilized bubble. Her mom became obsessed with germs. We're talking industrial-strength disinfecting, hand sanitizer stations in every room, and constant cleaning. The harsh smell of bleach still triggers anxiety for Sarah to this day. But here's the part that really messed her up. Whenever Sarah showed even the slightest sign of illness, she was immediately shipped off to either Grandma Marie's or Aunt Kelly's house. Every single time. One sneeze? Pack your bags. A mild cough? Off to Grandma's house. At first, little Sarah thought it was fun. Grandma Marie made cookies, and Aunt Kelly had an amazing collection of Nancy Drew books. But kids aren't stupid. After a while, you start to understand what's really happening. You're not being sent away for adventures. You're being treated like a threat, like your very existence could harm your precious baby sister. Sarah tried everything to earn her parents' attention in healthier ways. She got straight A's. Her mom barely looked up from Rachel's latest doctor's appointment schedule. She won first place at the science fair with a project about renewable energy. Her dad just asked if she could store the display board in the garage because apparently Rachel was allergic to cardboard dust. Is that even a thing? The real heartbreak came when Sarah was 12. For months, she'd been practicing for the school talent show, teaching herself to play Bridge Over Troubled Water on the piano. It's a difficult piece for a 12-year-old. But on the night of the show, Rachel had a 99.1-degree fever. Guess who didn't have anyone in the audience? Meanwhile, 2 weeks later, the entire family including both sets of grandparents showed up for Rachel's 15-minute flute recital where she basically butchered hot cross buns. By age 7, Rachel had figured out how to manipulate the system perfectly. She'd outgrown most of her real health issues, but that didn't stop her from performing sick. Headache. Get to stay home from school. Feeling tired? Someone else had to do her chores. Worried about a test? Mom would literally call the school to get deadlines extended. Sarah started spending more and more time in her room, immersed in books about art history and antiques. Ironically, her room became her sanctuary mostly because Rachel claimed she was allergic to Sarah's lavender air freshener. So it was literally the only place in the house Rachel wouldn't invade. And here's what's really messed up. When Rachel faked being sick, a small part of Sarah felt grateful. At least she'd get taken to Grandma Marie's house, where someone would actually ask about her day or show interest in what she was learning. It was Grandma Marie who sparked Sarah's interest in vintage jewelry. She had this incredible collection of costume pieces that she let Sarah organize and catalog. Looking back, it seems almost prophetic that this childhood hobby would eventually become the foundation of Sarah's empire. The worst part wasn't even the obvious favoritism. It was how her parents rewrote history to justify their neglect. Rachel just needs more attention because she had such a rough start. Sarah's always been so independent. Sarah understands that her sister has special needs. No. Sarah didn't understand. She was a child who couldn't comprehend why having a strong immune system made her less deserving of love. High school became Sarah's escape route. While Rachel was establishing her drama empire in middle school, Sarah was laying the groundwork for a future her family couldn't even imagine. And let me tell you, nothing motivates you to succeed quite like knowing that absolutely nobody else will care whether you do or not. Those hours spent organizing Grandma Marie's jewelry collection taught Sarah something valuable: the importance of systematic organization and attention to detail. She approached everything in high school with that same perspective. Color-coded notes, meticulously organized study plans, everything in its place. Rachel made fun of her, calling her Rain Man. Real nice, sis. But here's the thing about being invisible. Nobody's watching your failures, but they're also not watching your successes. So you can do whatever you want. Sarah joined every club that wouldn't interfere with her part-time job at Carson's Diner. Debate team? Check. National Honor Society president? Check. Editor-in-chief of the school newspaper? Check. The debate team was where Sarah really found her voice. There's something incredibly empowering about dismantling someone's argument while maintaining complete composure. It also taught her how to negotiate, which she didn't realize at the time would become invaluable later. Junior year was when things got really interesting. Sarah took the SAT and got a perfect score. Not like, oh, pretty good, perfect. We're talking perfect. 1,600. You know how many people get that? Less than 1%. She remembers staring at the results screen for about 20 minutes, convinced it was a mistake. She rushed home to tell her parents. Big mistake. Her mom was in the kitchen helping Rachel with her English homework. The conversation? Mom, look, I got a perfect SAT score. That's nice, honey, but can you keep it down? Rachel's trying to concentrate. She has a big test tomorrow. And Rachel's response? Yeah, some of us actually have to study, Miss Perfect. Sarah still has the printout of those SAT results somewhere. Never got put on the fridge. But Rachel's C+ in English? That baby got primo refrigerator real estate, complete with a "we're so proud of you" magnet. College applications happened entirely in secret. Sarah applied to 15 schools without telling anyone. She wrote all her own essays, gathered her own recommendations, handled all the financial aid paperwork herself. Her guidance counselor, Mr. Chen, was the real MVP, helping her navigate the FAFSA since her parents were too busy. Then the acceptances started rolling in. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, University of Michigan. Each one with scholarship offers. Sarah stored them all in a locked box under her bed, knowing what would happen if Rachel found out. They'd suddenly make everything about Rachel's feelings. But if Sarah goes to Harvard, I'll be all alone. The day Sarah got her full ride offer from University of Michigan, Rachel made JV cheerleading. Guess which one was celebrated with a family dinner? Hint. Sarah had microwave mac and cheese in her room while they went to Olive Garden. When she told her parents at dinner that she was going to University of Michigan, they were shocked. Michigan? But that's so far. What if Rachel needs you? I hope you're not expecting us to help with expenses. Rachel's cheerleading competitions are very expensive. And Rachel? Oh my God, finally. Can I have your room? I need space for my TikTok videos. The summer before college, Sarah worked double shifts at Carson's Diner to save money. Carol, the owner, bless her heart, always gave her extra shifts and made sure she got to take home leftover pie. She also taught Sarah an important lesson: how to recognize genuine people in a world full of fakes. Move-in day at University of Michigan? Her parents couldn't make it because, surprise, Rachel had a cheerleading competition. Aunt Kelly drove her instead, helped her set up her dorm room, and gave her an envelope with $500. Your Grandma Marie wanted you to have this. She's so proud of you. Sarah later learned that Grandma had been saving that money from her Social Security checks for months. That first night in her dorm room, Sarah made herself a promise. She was going to build such an amazing life that being overlooked would seem impossible. Not for revenge. Not to prove anything to her family. But for that 8-year-old girl who used to get sent away for sneezing. College flew by in a blur of all-nighters, instant ramen, and glorious independence. Sarah graduated summa cum laude from the University of Michigan. Not that her parents noticed. They were too busy helping Rachel transfer to her third college in 2 years. But this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Sarah got an entry-level job at a high-end auction house in Detroit. Real old money establishment. She started in their estate sales department, cataloging the belongings of wealthy people after they died. Not exactly glamorous, but it paid the bills. Her first few months were pretty standard, logging endless china sets, categorizing vintage furniture. Then came the Kingston estate. Mrs. Kingston was an elderly widow who'd passed away with no children, leaving behind what everyone assumed was a massive collection of costume jewelry. Rooms full of the stuff. This is where those hours with Grandma Marie paid off. Sarah was going through this pile of jewelry when something caught her eye. An Art Deco brooch, nothing super flashy, but something about it felt different. The weight wasn't right for costume jewelry. The clasp mechanism was too intricate for a knockoff. Sarah spent her entire lunch break that day researching vintage jewelry markers and signatures. She ended up staying late at the office to use the company's subscription to various antique jewelry databases. The more she researched, the more certain she became. This wasn't costume jewelry. This was the real deal. Problem was, she was the new girl. Nobody was going to believe her if she claimed they had a potential gold mine. So she did what debate team taught her. She meticulously built her case. She spent 2 weeks during lunch breaks and evenings learning everything she could about Art Deco jewelry authentication. She even used some of her pathetic savings to pay for an online gemology course. Finally, she worked up the courage to approach her boss, Mr. Harrison. She brought the whole presentation. Comparative images, historical documentation, the works. Long story short, that costume brooch sold at auction for $47,000. Turns out it was part of a limited collection made for some European royalty in the 1920s. After that, Harrison started trusting her judgment. He began giving her other pieces to authenticate. Suddenly, her useless hobby of sorting antique jewelry had real value. Sarah threw herself into learning everything she could. She took every online course she could afford, spent weekends at estate sales studying pieces, even started a little notebook documenting different authentication techniques. Her commission checks grew bigger and bigger. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving, she was saving money. The family? Still remarkably uninterested. At Sunday dinners, which Sarah still attended like a fool, the conversation would go like this. Sarah's still at that antique shop, right? Actually, it's an auction house. And yes, I just authenticated a rare Tiffany piece. Oh my God, speaking of jewelry, you guys have to see this charm bracelet I bought at the mall. But Sarah didn't care anymore. For once in her life, she'd found something that was entirely hers. Something she was genuinely good at. Something that had nothing to do with being Rachel's disappointing older sister. About 2 years into her job at the auction house came the Rothschild collection. A huge estate, old money family, lots of buzz in the industry. Sarah was part of the team cataloging their jewelry collection, and that's when she spotted it. A fairly unremarkable Art Nouveau piece that everyone else had dismissed. She spent 3 days researching it, barely sleeping. Turned out to be a piece from a famous French jeweler's private collection that was thought to have been lost during World War II. When it sold at auction for $238,000, Harrison called Sarah into his office. She thought she was getting promoted. Instead, he said something that completely changed everything. Sarah, you're wasting your talent here. You should be running your own authentication business. At first, she brushed it off. Huh? Start a business? With what money? But the idea took root. She started doing small freelance authentication jobs on the side. Word spread about her incredible eye. Private collectors started reaching out directly. One night, sitting in her tiny apartment surrounded by jewelry reference books and authentication tools she'd gradually accumulated, Sarah had an epiphany. She could actually do this. She could build something of her own. So she did what any reasonable person would do. She took out a massive loan against her car, emptied her savings account, and rented a tiny office space in a sketchy part of town. People thought she was crazy. Maybe she was. Her office was basically a storage room above a Chinese restaurant, about the size of a college dorm room. The rent was cheap because it always smelled like Kung Pao chicken, and the Wi-Fi only worked if you sat in the corner by the window. But it was hers. The first few months were terrifying. She'd wake up at 4 in the morning in a cold sweat, calculating how many months until her savings ran out. The loan payments felt like a noose around her neck. Her office furniture consisted of a card table from Goodwill and a chair she literally found on the curb. Don't worry, she cleaned it thoroughly. But in the world of high-end jewelry authentication, reputation and connections are everything. And Sarah's time at the auction house had given her both. She started small, doing authentication work for local antique dealers. Her rates were lower than the big firms, but her attention to detail was becoming legendary. 6 months in came the watershed moment. A dealer she'd worked with at the auction house asked her to look at a collection of Victorian-era brooches. The owner wanted authentication before selling. Turned out to be a massive collection with pieces from 3 generations of families. Sarah worked on it for 2 weeks straight, barely sleeping, documenting everything. She found 2 extremely rare pieces that had been misidentified as later reproductions. The owner was so thrilled with Sarah's thorough analysis that she not only paid her fee but also gave her a 10% commission when the pieces sold. That commission? $86,000. More money than Sarah had made in the previous 2 years combined. Suddenly her phone was ringing off the hook. Private collectors heard about her knack for finding overlooked treasures. Estate lawyers looking for advice on inherited jewelry. Even her old auction house started sending her authentication work. She's pretty sure Harrison was secretly helping spread the word. Thanks, boss. By year 2, she'd hired her first employee, Jenny, a recent gemology graduate who reminded Sarah way too much of herself at that age. Brilliant but overlooked because she was quiet. Jenny is now her head of authentication and worth her weight in gold. The firm grew faster than Sarah could have imagined. Moved to a proper downtown office. Goodbye, Kung Pao chicken smell. Built a team of specialists. Earned a reputation for finding lost treasures. You wouldn't believe how many important historical jewelry pieces get misidentified as costume jewelry in people's attics. Success came with its own challenges. The bigger the business grew, the harder it became to keep it secret from her family. They still thought she worked at some dinky antique shop. Rachel would make these snide comments at family dinners. Sarah, I have some old jewelry I was going to donate to Goodwill. Maybe your little shop would want it. Sarah, having just authenticated a $1.2 million fabric piece that morning. Sure, I'll take a look at it. Her mom continued introducing her to everyone as, my other daughter. She works with old jewelry or something. Meanwhile, Sarah had just been quoted in Forbes. Luckily under her company name. Keeping the secret became almost fun, like this private joke with herself. She'd sit at Sunday dinner in her Target clearance outfit, actually Chanel, listening to Rachel talk about her entry-level marketing job, knowing she'd just closed a deal worth more than Rachel's annual salary. Sarah even started playing little games with herself, like wearing genuine Harry Winston pieces to family gatherings to see if anyone noticed. They never did. Rachel once spent 20 minutes showing off her expensive $200 Michael Kors watch. Sarah was wearing a vintage Patek Philippe that cost more than Rachel's car. By year 5, the company had established offices in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. Sarah spent more time on airplanes than in her own bed. They'd built a reputation for discretion. Turns out many wealthy people want their jewels authenticated without the rest of the world knowing about it. The money was staggering. But Sarah maintained a relatively modest lifestyle. She bought a nice but not flashy house in a good neighborhood. Drove a nice but not obvious car. The only place she truly splurged? Her home office. Advanced authentication equipment, the best security system money could buy, a custom-built vault that would make Fort Knox envious. The irony? Her family thought she was being frugal to help them out. Her mom would say things like, "It's so sweet of Sarah to help out. She must be eating nothing but ramen to afford it." Meanwhile, Sarah had just authenticated a collection that earned her a commission bigger than their mortgage. You know what's weird about success? The more you have, the harder it is to explain to people who've always seen you as less than. It's like trying to explain color to someone who's only ever seen black and white. They just don't have the framework for it. But at this point, Sarah's business was doing incredibly well. They had the Midwest's high-end jewelry authentication market cornered. Their reputation was solid gold. Pun intended. Yet every Sunday, Sarah would drive to her parents' house for dinner, playing the role of Sarah the humble antique shop worker. The cognitive dissonance was becoming ridiculous. She'd spent her mornings on conference calls with Dubai collectors, her afternoons authenticating million-dollar pieces, and her evenings at her parents' house in carefully selected, normal people clothes, eating her mom's overcooked pot roast while Rachel dominated the conversation with stories about her latest marketing triumph. Usually something like bringing her boss's coffee without spilling it. One Sunday stands out particularly vividly in Sarah's memory. She just completed a huge deal, authenticating a lost Cartier piece that had been sitting in someone's safe deposit box for 40 years. The commission? 7 figures. She drove straight from that meeting to her parents' house, still buzzing from the successful authentication. "Sarah, honey, is everything okay? Your clothes are looking a bit worn." "Oh, just trying to save money." Wearing a $3,000 cashmere sweater she'd specifically chosen for its understated appearance. "Well, if you'd gotten a real job instead of playing with old jewelry." "Mom, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as me." Sarah almost choked on her pot roast trying not to laugh. That's when the anonymous transfers started. Aunt Kelly mentioned that her parents were struggling with Rachel's student loan payments and medical bills. Her mom casually mentioned they might have to sell the house. Sarah couldn't let that happen. Despite everything, it was still the house she grew up in. So she started anonymous monthly transfers of $5,000 to their account. When asked, she claimed she was contributing $1,000 by living on rice and beans. They assumed the rest came from Aunt Kelly or some other family member. Rachel, of course, took credit for inspiring family members to help. The money helped, but it also created unintended consequences. Her parents started treating Sarah with a weird mix of pity and patronizing pride, like she was some kind of noble poverty case sacrificing everything to help the family. Meanwhile, Rachel's spending became more extravagant. She'd show up to dinner with new designer bags, claiming they were outlet finds. They weren't. Sarah can spot real Gucci from 20 paces. Rachel started taking lavish vacations, posting on Instagram about her #blessed life. Sarah is pretty sure Rachel was using her support money for shopping sprees. But she kept quiet. The irony was just too delicious. Then came the MBA drama. Rachel announced she wanted to go back to school for her MBA. Another private university, of course. Only the best for the golden child. Her mom called Sarah in tears about how they couldn't afford it. Maybe Rachel could look at state schools? They have good programs. "Oh honey, you don't understand. Your sister needs to maintain certain standards. But speaking of helping, could you maybe increase your monthly contribution for a few years?" Sarah increased it to $7,000 a month. Her accounts barely noticed, but watching them praise Rachel for taking initiative with her education, while assuming Sarah was living on ramen to help out, that stung a little. The real kicker? Sarah was giving a guest lecture at the same business school Rachel wanted to attend. The dean personally invited her to speak about luxury goods authentication and business growth. Sarah had to make up an excuse for why she couldn't attend Sunday dinner that week. Her actual accomplishments started to feel like a separate life, like she was some kind of corporate superhero with a secret identity. By day, running a multi-million-dollar authentication empire. By night, well, Sunday evenings, just Sarah, the disappointing daughter who worked at an antique shop. The weight of the lie was getting heavier. Each snide comment Rachel made about Sarah's career. Each time her mom apologized to friends for Sarah's modest lifestyle. Each time her dad suggested she get a real job. Sarah always knew it would end dramatically. She just didn't expect it to implode quite so spectacularly on Thanksgiving. It started 2 weeks before the holiday. Her mom called, crying about her back pain. She'd been diagnosed with a herniated disc, and the thought of cooking Thanksgiving dinner for 20 people was overwhelming. Now, Sarah would like to tell you she offered to help purely out of kindness. But honestly, she was tired of pretending her mom's dry turkey was delicious. "Why don't I handle the food this year? I can have it catered." "Oh honey, we can't afford a caterer." "Don't worry about the cost. I've been saving up." "You're not taking out a loan, are you?" Sarah coordinated everything with a high-end catering firm she used for business events. They do incredible work, the kind of food that makes you wonder why anyone bothers cooking. It cost more than her parents thought she earned in 2 months. But whatever. Thanksgiving morning arrived, and Sarah was feeling pretty good. She had her laptop with her because she needed to monitor a major online auction in Hong Kong. This stunning Art Nouveau necklace was up for sale, and she had a client interested in authentication if they won the bid. The food arrived on schedule, everything perfectly prepared. Rachel, of course, had to comment, "Store-bought stuffing, really, Sarah? Mom's is so much better." This from the girl who once set the smoke alarm off making toast. Her mom was apologizing to everyone for not cooking herself, but you could tell they were loving the meal. Rachel shut up after tasting the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts, which by the way cost more per plate than Rachel's weekly grocery budget. Between dinner and dessert, Sarah stepped away to check her laptop. The auction was getting interesting, and she needed to be ready if her client won. She sat up in her old bedroom, which her mom had kept exactly the same since high school. Meanwhile, Rachel's room had been renovated 3 times. That's when everything went wrong. Sarah had left her authentication software running with several tabs open showing various accounts and current deals. Rachel walked in without knocking. Some things never change, supposedly to borrow a phone charger. She saw Sarah's laptop screen and apparently thought this was her chance to finally expose how pathetic her older sister really was. Let's show everyone what Sarah's really been up to. Before Sarah could stop her, Rachel grabbed the laptop and marched into the dining room. Picture this, 20 people, stuffed with gourmet turkey and half-drunk on expensive wine they thought was from Trader Joe's. Time to see what kind of important work Sarah's doing on Thanksgiving. Rachel flipped the laptop around triumphantly, apparently expecting to embarrass her with whatever small-time antique deals she assumed were on screen. The room went absolutely silent. Like you could hear the fancy clock Sarah got her mom for Christmas, which her mom thought was a replica. Ticking quietly, Rachel's face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. The final one landed somewhere between shock and nausea. She actually swayed a little. This can't be right. Rachel, honey, what is it? Rachel's voice cracked. She's rich. Sarah's rich. If it was possible. The silence deepened even further. Then her mom started laughing. Like, really laughing. Don't be silly. Sarah works at that little antique shop. Sarah stood up slowly, smoothing down her simple cashmere sweater that cost more than their monthly mortgage. Actually, Mom, I own one of the largest jewelry authentication firms in the country. Have for years. Those antique shop comments? I authenticate pieces worth millions. That little business you never asked about? It has offices in 3 cities. Her dad choked on his wine. Aunt Kelly dropped her fork. An uncle started coughing violently. Then her mom's laughter changed into something else. Her face went red, then purple. She stood up so fast her chair toppled over. You have millions and you let us struggle? Struggle? I've been sending you $7,000 every month. While sitting on millions. Your sister has student loans. And there it was. Not, congratulations. Not wow, we're so proud. Just rage that Sarah hadn't given them more money. Rachel started crying. Shocking, I know. Sobbing about how she deserved to know, how Sarah had betrayed the family. Dad joined in. How could you be so selfish? We're your parents. We raised you. That's when Sarah lost it. Years of being overlooked, years of dismissal, years of being treated like a family disappointment. Everything poured out. Raised me? You shipped me off to grandma's every time I sneezed. You missed every achievement, every award, every milestone because Rachel might feel left out. You never saved a penny for my college but took out loans for her private schools. And now you're mad that I built something for myself. The next 5 minutes were chaos. Her mom screaming about family obligations. Dad yelling about ungrateful children. Rachel alternating between crying and demanding to know exactly how much money Sarah had. Meanwhile, the fancy catering staff was trying to serve dessert while looking extremely uncomfortable. Sarah grabbed her laptop, took her Hermes bag, which her mom had previously complimented as a nice knockoff, and walked out. Behind her, she could hear her mom talking about how to spend Sarah's money. Something about Rachel's MBA and a new car. The days following Thanksgiving were like watching a tornado hit in slow motion. Except the tornado was Sarah's family and the debris was her sanity. Within 1 hour of leaving dinner, her phone had 47 missed calls. Over 200 text messages. Her mom's messages followed this fascinating progression. 7:42 p.m. How dare you walk out on family? 8:15 p.m. We need to talk about this like adults. 9:03 p.m. Your sister deserves a share of your success. 10:30 p.m. I've already called a realtor about houses in better neighborhoods. 11:45 p.m. Why aren't you answering? This is your mother. Meanwhile, Rachel had gone full social media warrior. She posted this massive rant on Facebook about how her millionaire sister had been hoarding wealth while watching her beloved family struggle. The comment section was insane. Distant cousins Sarah hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had strong opinions about her moral character. Former high school classmates she barely remembered were weighing in. But the part that really got to Sarah? Rachel actually posted, "All those years of me trying to help Sarah's career, giving her advice about moving up from that little antique shop, and she was secretly wealthy. The betrayal hurt so much." The only career advice Rachel ever gave? She suggested Sarah try selling jewelry on Etsy. Then came the flying monkeys. Aunt Susan, who Sarah maybe saw once every 3 years, called to tell her that family is everything. Uncle Bob, who Sarah's pretty sure still thinks she's 12, emailed a long lecture about the importance of sharing wealth. Even her third cousin's wife's sister, how did she even get this number? Felt compelled to share her thoughts on family obligation. The real fun started when they showed up at Sarah's office. She arrived Monday morning to find Mom, Dad, and Rachel sitting in the reception area. They told Jenny, her receptionist, they had an appointment for authentication services. Rachel was clutching her Michael Kors bag like it was actually worth something. "We've discussed it as a family." A family discussion without the family member you're discussing? "And we think it's only fair that you set up trust funds for everyone. I need at least $2 million to start my new life properly," Rachel added. "And your mother and I would like to retire. We're thinking a beach house in Florida." Did you miss the part where I've been sending you $7,000 monthly? That's nothing compared to what you have. You owe us. I owe you? For what exactly? The years of being ignored? The missed graduations? The constant comparisons? Don't be dramatic, Sarah. We gave you everything. No. I gave myself everything. And you know what? I'm done. Right there in her own office lobby, Sarah pulled out her phone and canceled the monthly transfers to their account. Her mom gasped like Sarah had slapped her. Rachel started her fake crying routine but quickly stopped when she realized it wasn't working. Then things got ugly. They refused to leave. Sarah had to call security. Watching her 60-year-old mother being escorted out while yelling about ungrateful children was surreal. Jenny asked if Sarah wanted to press charges. She said no, but she did have their names added to the building's "Do Not Admit" list. The harassment continued for weeks. New phone numbers, fake email addresses, they even tried contacting her through the company's customer service line. Sarah finally had to send a formal legal notice threatening harassment charges. Then her mom played her final card. She called Grandma Marie. But here's the thing about Grandma Marie. She's smarter than all of them combined. Her response? Good for Sarah. About time someone in this family succeeded on their own merits. Her mom didn't speak to Grandma for 2 months after that. It's been 6 months since Thanksgiving now. Sarah moved to a new house with better security. Changed all her numbers. The company? They're doing better than ever. Turns out her family drama actually attracted several high-profile clients who respected her discretion in the situation. Rachel continues posting passive-aggressive updates about toxic wealth and family betrayal. According to what Sarah's heard, Rachel's starting her own jewelry authentication business now. Good luck with that. Mom and Dad finally stopped trying to contact Sarah after her lawyer sent